Studio Kroner welcomes Emily Kaelin to the gallery. Emily's show, Darkness to Devour It All, opens next Thursday, February 17th, with an opening reception from 6 to 9 p.m. We're located at 130 West Court Street in downtown Cincinnati. I hope you can come out and see Emily's work. It's wonderful, and I'm really grateful to have you come in today for this conversation. Get to know you a little bit better.
I'm stoked to be here.
And anyway, it's great to have you here, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time getting to know you a little bit more, learning sort of the background of your art, where it's coming from, when you started. So tell me about how you got into being a painter, where that came from, what your early influences are for...
Well, I mean, I've been an artist since before I can remember, pretty much. I mean, I've always been drawing, I know that. I started really learning how to paint when I was 6. My dad taught me. I wanted to learn because of Bob Ross. I think he was really the main influence there. I enjoyed watching his show so much as a kid, and that's when I really wanted to start painting. And my dad, who's a self-taught painter himself, he kind of got me started, and I've never stopped. Yeah, art has always been a part of my life.
So it's interesting to think about Bob Ross.
Right, yeah.
Sort of a gateway to your work today. And he's so big right now.
Oh, I know.
And do you ever go back and watch any of his shows?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. They're very relaxing.
Oh, they're magical.
They are magical. It's amazing.
You know, he does those snows on pine trees, and you're just like, oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah. He does it all in a half hour.
Yeah.
It is something.
Yeah. So I know your dad's a designer, and I'm wondering what kind of influence design had on you as a painter, and going through school, and whether it was I don't want to be that way, or it's very much a part of that.
It was probably more resisting the design side than anything, even though eventually later as an adult I did do graphic design for a couple years as my job, but I quit because I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
It was too tedious. You have to be too perfect. That's not how I work. I'm messy, I'm sloppy, I'm not perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the iterative approach to design is not
it's not really my jam.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be fun sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of creative aspects to design. It's not all just tedium and details, but so I enjoyed it up to a point, but yeah, it was too much. And
I know you studied in grad school and undergrad, and I'm just sort of curious to go back a little bit further into high school, because some high schools around here have really good art programs.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to go to one that had a really good one. I went to Lakota, and they have a great art program there. So that's when high school is when I really started getting proper training. I was all self-taught before then for the most part. I didn't take classes or anything. I just learned a little from my dad and just figured it out on my own. And then in high school, that's when I got some real proper schooling in art, and I was able to take art every semester I went to school. And then the last year I was there, almost all my classes were art related, which was great.
That's awesome. So after high school, you studied art as an undergrad student.
Yeah.
Where did you do that?
I went to Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design in Denver.
Okay.
And then later I went to grad school at the Burn College of Art in Ireland.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, that was wonderful. The school that I went to, the Burn College of Art, is in a part of Ireland called the Burren. It's a very remote location. It's on the west coast. And it's very unusual landscape compared to the rest of Ireland, which is a lot lusher and greener. The Burren is a little more desolate, very rocky. Although there's a lot of plant life there. Don't get me wrong, especially hiding between the rocks. Lots of unusual things growing out. They have a weird combination of both alpine and Mediterranean plants.
That's really weird.
Yeah, I don't remember why exactly that is, but now they taught us when we got there, but I've since discarded that knowledge, but it is neat, and even orchids and things grow there, and it's just very unusual landscape. But this was really just right in the middle of nowhere, and that was what was really cool about that school, was there were no distractions.
So you just
could focus on what I needed to do.
Yeah. So that description of the place is very specific and very organic.
Yeah.
And your work has an organic quality.
Oh, definitely.
So how much was the landscape incorporating into your work at that time?
I mean, I wasn't necessarily pulling from it directly, but I know it was influencing me. Yeah, if honestly, like, if I can be around nature when I'm working, I think I do better. And I definitely think it influences me. I did a residency in Washington State a couple years ago in the temperate rainforest up there near the Olympic State or Olympic National Forest. So I had this whole cottage with a workspace right in the middle of the forest all to myself. And that was bliss. That was only 2 weeks.
But that's pretty amazing.
It was bliss.
Yeah.
Just being in the middle of the forest was remarkable. And I think it was very similar, you know, to kind of being in Ireland, because it was just me and the nature.
So I'm sort of curious, as between undergrad and grad school, what kind of changes took place in your work? Because I know grad school sometimes tries to break down maybe what you've learned in undergrad.
Yeah.
And so can you just tell us a little bit about that experience?
Definitely something shifted in grad school. First year, I got really stuck because I didn't know what I wanted to do going forward, and I had a lot of these like fragmentary ideas, but nothing that was fully fleshed out, and I felt like if I couldn't fully flesh out these ideas, there was no point in pursuing them. But then by the time second year started, I was able to shift my thinking with that and just thought, well, I'm not getting anywhere. I need to just maybe take these little idea fragments and just do something with them. I don't know what will happen, if they'll go anywhere, if they're just going to be experiments, but maybe they'll go somewhere. And that is actually what happened. Once I started working with those little fragments, I was able to take them further and further and further, made a bunch of work I was really pleased with, and I've just tried to stick with that going forward, just working with those idea fragments and purposefully working with fragments rather than even trying to flesh things out too much. It's actually, I'm finding it works better for me to just have that little seed of an idea rather than the completed idea, for a few reasons. First of all, if I have too much of a clear idea of what I want to do and I start working on a piece and it's not looking the way I'm envisioning, I can get frustrated and I'll give up sometimes. If I just have a more vague idea in my head, that gives me more room to just let the piece develop and figure it out as I go and really use my intuition to work with it. No, so it's become really a purposeful thing that I've done.
You're not mapping out the entire canvas. You're like, here's a part of it, the fragment, and then you're piecing it together as you go.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's cool. It's envious, you know. As my design background makes
hard for me to do
at times. So I
understand.
love that. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something you wrote in your bio, which is you do self-portraiture, but self-portraiture of the psyche, which again I think is a really intriguing expression, and I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, I've always done self-portraits ever since I was a kid. All different kinds of self-portraits. I'm probably my favorite subject. Frida Kahlo would say the same thing about herself, I think. But my work is also very much influenced by the mood disorders I have. So bipolar, all the depression that goes with that, anxiety, ADHD, a lot of that can be overwhelming. And I've used my art over the years to try to make sense of a lot of that. And when I got to grad school, I started studying Jungian psychology and archetypes. And the more I read about that, the more I got into it, the more I started to apply it to how I think about myself internally in relation to my artwork, like why I'm so, interested in self-portraits, why I'm so interested in myself as a subject, that kind of thing. And sometimes, because of the chaotic nature of a lot of my emotions and the extreme nature of a lot of my emotions, it sometimes feels like I have all of these different versions of myself within myself that embody all of those different emotions, those extreme emotions, and there's a lot of like shadow selves in there that I don't like, they're ugly, I don't want them to be a part of me, but they are a part of me. Everybody has that shadow selves, and you just you actually have to give them love, and you have to embrace them and honor them, in some way, otherwise you will always be fragmented. So a lot of my more recent work, especially in the past like 7 or 8 years, has been this conscious kind of exploration of all of those internal selves and shadow selves, and trying to honor them and make them manifest, make them tangible. Not just a feeling that's inside of me, but something that's real.
Yeah, that's great.
And it gives me perspective too. I can pull back from myself a little better that way.
Give those little demons a hug and
Yeah.
make them feel like they're okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Frida Kahlo as an artist. I'm assuming she's an influence or a role model. Who else do you like to look at and have looked at and are influenced by?
There's certainly a lot. I guess I'll start with Surrealists, since Frida Kahlo is a Surrealist. She's definitely one. There's a lot of others. Leonor Feeney, Remedios Varo, Beksinski, yeah. He's he did a lot of different kinds of things over the years that he was painting. He's dead now. He was murdered, actually. But he had a whole series of works that were dark, surreal, kind of incredibly detailed, just remarkable pieces. And his work influences my stuff probably more than a lot of others. And there's an Italian artist who's more contemporary. He's still making work. His name is Agostino Arrivabene. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he does work in a lot of old oil paint and tempera techniques and those kind of things, hand ground pigments. So they have that old,
a lot of glazing and
yes,
things like that.
Lots of glazing. They have that old luminous quality that 16th and 15th century paintings have. But the content, the imagery is all totally different. It's very surreal, very strange, but beautiful and creepy, all the good things, And then there's, the expressionists too, all the different iterations of expressionism I'm really interested in. So older stuff like Sheila, Soutine, Kokoschka, more abstract expressionist stuff like Joan Mitchell or Helen Frankenthaler. Those are a couple of my favorites there. Basquiat, of course. I'm just really attracted to the color and the emotionality and the rawness of the mark making and all of those things that go on in expressionism. And Francis Bacon too, of course. It's kind of hard to genreify him, but he definitely influences me. Yeah.
Very cool. So looking back over you're still pretty young, so looking back over your time, what kind of advice would you give a younger version of yourself, like a high school student who was just finally getting into art or just coming into undergrad school, and you've got some experience behind you now, and what would you tell that person?
I would just tell her to stop being so self-critical. There's just absolutely no need for it. You are already so devoted, so dedicated to this. You already have so much talent and ability. You're only going to get better. So just don't be so hard on yourself. Lighten up.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
That's a good,
I say that to myself still, though.
Well, you have to sort of say it, many mornings that happens when you walk in the studio, right?
Yes.
My process is, it's like something starts fast and I sort of like get a little crush on it. And then the next day I come in, I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? It's like, okay, I've got just nothing going on here.
Oh yeah, I know.
And then it's just like, okay, I'm going to have to slug it out with this thing and see if I can fall back in love with it. Is that a familiar?
Oh, definitely. Sometimes things will start out great and then I hit a brick wall, or sometimes there'll always just be a struggle even from the beginning, and then somehow or another I pull it together in the end.
Yeah. Sometimes
I'll be finished with the painting and I'll like it, and then I'll just look at it too much and then I'll start to hate it. I mean, it's always different. Every painting's a different experience, a different journey. You have a different relationship to it.
Yeah, you live and breathe that piece while you're working on it.
Right.
And I would imagine you're like me, and that you're processing that while you're sleeping.
All day long, all night long, everything. Yeah.
Some nights I have to get up and tell it to stop. It's like, I'll get to you in the morning. Let me sleep right now. So that's great. I'm wondering if you have, in the midst of that whole conversation, and if there's like this one sort of motto or credo you have for yourself now that motivates you, or
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's simply that I just want to stay true to my vision and not worry about making work that is more marketable or palatable, sellable. I mean, I do have an art business now that I started last year, so I am, trying more actively to sell my work and sell prints of my work than I ever have before. So obviously I want to sell stuff, but regardless, I can't compromise my vision just to make work that's going to sell better. I can't make work unless I mean it. I can't make something that feels forced or fake in any way.
Yeah, and authenticity is the key.
It really is.
Yeah. And it's like it being, and if you don't have that, you feel unsettled.
Right.
So you have to be true, but otherwise you're walking around like on uneven ground.
Yeah. Really, what's the point? Yeah.
I would agree. Well, with that, I'm going to bring it to a conclusion. Great conversation. I really appreciate you taking your time.
Definitely.
Emily's show is called Darkness to Devour It All. It opens Thursday, February 17th with an opening reception from 6 to 9 p.m. here at Studio Kroner, located at 130 West Court Street. Please stop by. The show runs until March 19th. I hope to see you in the gallery. Hopefully you get down here and get to meet Emily in person next Thursday, the 17th. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.